Good evening. Thank you for tuning in to Canal Algérie's nightly news. To the headlines. First, we hark back to the outcomes of the last Arab summit held in Algeria, namely Palestinian factions reconciliation, Syria's readmission into the Arab League, and more. The Pan-African Parliament denounces the interference in Algerian matters and stresses that Algerian press enjoys full freedom. So do the Arab Parliament and the Organization of the Islamic Cooperation, which reject the lies and misleading information, the European Parliament's resolution on Algeria. On a visit to Jilfa province, the Minister of Interior, Local Collectivities and Territorial Planning, Brahim Rad, listens to the concerns of citizens while meeting with civil society representatives and is briefed on the project to provide the municipality Bouira Ahdab with potable water. Welcome again. First off, the efforts deployed by Algeria during its chairmanship of the Arab League were qualified as historic by observers. Algeria succeeded to bring together Palestinian factions through a historic agreement, and it is also Algeria that called for Syria's readmission into the Arab League. Manan Ammari explains.
Algeria's diplomatic efforts during its chairmanship of the Council of the Arab League at the summit paid off by putting an end to Arab dissensions and closing the ranks of the Palestinians, which led to Syria's return within the Arab Organization. Algeria deployed colossal efforts under the guidelines of the President of the Republic to enable Syria to return to its vacant seat. The President of the Republic repeatedly emphasized that Syria, as a founding member of the Arab League, cannot be removed from its environment. Algeria's constant efforts were rewarded by Syria's successful return within the Arab League after 12 years of absence, a new victory for Algerian diplomacy. Efforts which led to the sealing of a historic agreement between Palestinian factions and the consolidation of the principle of dialogue, a diplomacy that always favored peaceful solutions by playing a central and effective role in all approaches to support the Palestinian cause. Indeed, Algeria's decision to organize a Palestinian gathering before the holding of the Arab Summit was not fortuitous. These diplomatic efforts also made it possible to welcome in July of last year, in a first encounter since 2016, the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas and the head of the political bureau of the Hamas movement. Positions and initiatives that exclusively rely on the principle of solidarity and inter-Arab aid, far from political calculations and narrow interests.
The European Parliament, an institution that has been riddled with corruption and continuous dangerous slips hidden behind the curtain of the international law. However, all of its failed attempts will not affect the sovereignty of Algeria. Manan Ammari once again.
The European Union's Parliament's headquarters, located in Brussels, is the biggest European legislative institution. However, if we look beyond the surface, we will find that everything here, including files and international issues, are sold for the benefit of whoever will pay more under the table, including endless scandals and mistakes, which tarnished the reputation of European institutions altogether. Current and former deputies, senior officials and heads of non-governmental institutions from various European countries were involved in one of the biggest corruption cases that was uncovered by the Belgian justice after being used by the Makhzen to serve its interests against the Sahrawi cause. However, they were put in custody and made the parliament lose all credibility. Another scandal arose which corresponds with this institution's history that is riddled with bribery and corruption, namely the Moroccan and Zionist espionage case Pegasus that involved members of the European Parliament, a case that tops the columns of international newspapers, since now everything has a price, including prizes that the European Parliament gives out in accordance with the slogans of freedom and transparency, sold for stacks of euros, as was the case in the exclusion of the Sahrawi activist Sultana Khaya from receiving this institution's Freedom of Thought Prize after being nominated, with the complicity of Morocco, as was stated by European deputies. Accusations of corruption, money laundering, the formation of criminal groups, and the drafting of false reports are the legislative policies that were approved by the European Parliament, and it is not unusual for members of this institution to shed crocodile tears as they supposedly defend human rights and issue statements of conviction regarding the situation in Ukraine and its refugees' rights, while they turn a blind eye and don't even condemn the situation in Palestine. The European Parliament did not even hide its bias towards the Zionist entity and never discussed or reacted against the displacement of Palestinians, the occupation and the settlement policy, or even the existence of more than 10,000 Palestinian detainees in Zionist prisons, most of whom never even stood trial. Not to forget the situation in Sudan, Syria, Iraq, and Libya before, in addition to slogans related to freedom of speech that are thrown aside when it comes to countries located outside of the European Parliament's coverage area. Otherwise, how would this institution's deputies make the decision to ban the Russia Today network and the Sputnik news agency in EU countries in order to suppress Russia by so-called advocates of the freedom of press and democracy? As for the assassination of Shireen Abu Aqla, many has been said about the inhuman and deafening international silence regarding her case. This European institution covers up the facts while its members turn to extortion whenever their pockets are emptied and their plans are revealed.
Among the reactions denouncing the resolution of the European Parliament is that of the Pan-African Parliament that rejected any interference in the internal matters of Algeria and all African countries. The Parliament stressed that press in Algeria enjoys complete freedom and that the number of daily newspapers and public and private television channels bears witness to that. For their part, the Arab Parliament denounced the statement of the European Parliament as well, considering it a blatant interference and a continuation of the unacceptable approach of similar statements issued by the European Parliament on human rights in Arab countries. The Arab Parliament called on Algeria and other Arab countries to pay no attention to such suspicious statements as they were issued by a party that has no authority or mandate to evaluate human rights in Arab countries. The Secretary General of the Parliamentary Union of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation member states expressed his strong condemnation of the European Parliament's interference in Algeria's internal affairs, following the issuance of a resolution by the European Parliament on freedom of expression and the press in Algeria, calling on the European Parliament to respect the sovereignty of Algeria and all the countries of the Union, further affirming that the Union stands with Algeria that holds presidency of the Parliamentary Union of the OIC members. As part of the efforts to establish a new style of local governance based on internal dialogue and consultation, the Minister of Interior, Local Collectivities and Territory Planning, Brahim Merad, stressed on a meeting with civil society representatives in El Jilfa province the commitment to listen to the concerns and identify and address imbalances. The Minister of Interior, Local Collectivities and Territory Planning was briefed on the project to provide the municipality Buya Ahdab with potable water. This project is expected to come into service the upcoming month of July. The occupied Palestinian territories, the Zionist army continues its attacks against civilians. The last targeted neighborhood was Hay al-Nasr in Gaza Strip. Update on the situation with Wissam Abu Zaid and Sabrin Tafrginit.
نحن نتواجد الآن في حي النصر أحد الأحياء الفلسطينية بمدينة غزة. وهنا غارة إسرائيلية.
The Zionist occupying forces chose Friday to target al-Nasr. After 4 days of endless air raids, the death toll keeps increasing, causing 33 martyrs and no less than 110 injured. Our correspondent Wissam Abu Zaid witnessed these awful images of chaos and total fear that the Palestinians are undergoing. Rescue workers were able to reach the area and remove the bodies of 2 other Palestinian martyrs and the wounded ones. Firemen are working to extinguish the fire caused by this aggression, alongside pulling Palestinians out of the rubble. Other regions of Gaza Strip like Rafah and Yunis didn't escape from this uncountable air raids against innocent civilians. This Friday, attempts to provoke Palestinians are still going. Meanwhile, the Palestinian resistance didn't hesitate to have a response, as dozens of rockets were launched. On the 4th day of this Zionist aggression, health workers are facing critical conditions, with no valuable equipment to take care of these innocent civilians, whose homes are completely destroyed.
In a letter addressed to the Sahrawi people on the occasion of the 50th anniversary of the founding of the Polisario Front, the Suez Committee highlighted the corruption and blackmail by Morocco, criticizing the states that disgraced themselves by pledging alliance with Al Makhzen by opening consulates in the occupied Western Sahara territories. The committee added the international community must call these states to order. In the occupied Laayoune, Moroccan occupation attacked the house of the militant Salha Boutrizkiza, a barbaric aggression that also targeted other human rights militants in the occupied city of Laayoune. More than 700 deaths and 5,000 are left injured, and no less than 700,000 are displaced. These are the unfortunate numbers that resulted from the conflict that has taken place in Sudan for more than a month now. Representatives of both conflicted parties have signed a document in Jeddah for the protection of civilians. With that, our news edition comes to a close. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.